The little helper and the CEO? The elevator doors opened with a harsh ding, and Marcus Chen stepped out into the marble lobby of his headquarters, his Italian leather shoes clicking against the polished floor. As CEO of Chen Industries, he commanded respect from everyone he encountered, except today apparently from gravity itself. A sudden gust of wind from the revolving door caught the stack of contracts in his arms, sending dozens of papers flying across the pristine lobby like oversized confetti. Marcus watched in horror as merger agreements worth millions scattered in every direction, some sliding under furniture, others floating toward the ornate fountain at the center of the space. No, 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 he muttered, diving for the nearest document. His $3,000 suit was definitely not designed for crawling on marble floors, but desperate times called for desperate measures. He managed to grab a few sheets when he heard a small, clear voice behind him. "Mister, I can help you." Marcus turned to see a little girl, no more than 7 years old, already gathering papers with the efficiency of someone 3 times her age. She wore a faded pink dress that had seen better days, her dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail secured with what looked like a rubber band. Despite her modest appearance, she moved with purpose, carefully smoothing each document before adding it to her growing pile. "That's very kind of you," Marcus said, genuinely touched. In his world of corporate sharks and calculated moves, genuine kindness had become as rare as hen's teeth. "What's your name?" "Emma," she replied, continuing her methodical collection. "My mama says we should always help people when they're in trouble." She paused at a paper that had landed near the fountain. "These look really important. Are you in big trouble?" Marcus couldn't help but smile. "Well, these papers are worth about $20 million, so maybe a little trouble." He expected her eyes to widen with amazement, but Emma just nodded seriously, as if $20 million was simply another number to her. As they worked together, Marcus found himself studying this unusual child. Most kids would have been intimidated by the opulent surroundings or his imposing presence, but Emma seemed completely at ease. She chatted freely about her day at school, her best friend Sarah, and how she was waiting for her mother to finish cleaning offices upstairs. "Your mom works here?" Marcus asked, realizing he'd never paid attention to the cleaning staff who worked after hours. "She cleans lots of buildings," Emma explained, reaching under a chair for a wayward contract. "She works really hard so we can have a nice apartment. Well, it's small, but it's nice because we're together." The innocence in her voice struck something deep in Marcus's chest. When was the last time he'd felt that kind of simple contentment? When had his own happiness become so tied to stock prices and profit margins that he'd forgotten what truly mattered? As Emma stretched to retrieve a paper from under a decorative table, her sleeve rode up, revealing something that made Marcus's blood freeze. There, on her tiny wrist, was a bracelet that looked exactly like one that had been stolen from his family's estate 15 years ago. Not similar, identical. The intricate jade dragons, the specific pattern of gold links, the small chip in the cornerstone that had been there since his great-grandmother's time in Shanghai. Marcus stared, his mind racing. That bracelet was a family heirloom, passed down through 5 generations of Chen women. It had been his grandmother's most treasured possession, something she'd managed to save when his family fled China decades ago. The insurance company had valued it at $50,000, but to his family it was priceless. "Emma," he said carefully, trying to keep his voice steady. "That's a beautiful bracelet. Where did you get it?" The little girl looked down at her wrist, and for the first time since he'd met her, she seemed uncomfortable. I don't remember. I've had it for a really long time." She tugged at her sleeve, trying to cover it. Marcus felt torn between suspicion and the growing affection he felt for this child. Could her mother be involved in the theft? Was this sweet little girl unknowingly wearing stolen goods? The logical part of his mind said to call security immediately, but something about Emma's genuine confusion made him hesitate. "It's okay," he said gently. "I was just curious. It looks very old and special." Emma relaxed slightly. "Mama says it's supposed to protect me. She put it on me when I was really little, and she said I should never take it off because it keeps bad things away." The plot thickened. Marcus's grandmother had always said the same thing about the bracelet, that it was blessed by monks in an ancient temple and would protect the women in their family. Either this was an extraordinary coincidence, or there was more to this story than met the eye. Over the next few minutes, as they finished collecting the scattered papers, Marcus gently probed for more information. Emma mentioned that she and her mother had moved around a lot when she was younger, that her mother worked multiple jobs, and that she didn't have a daddy. Each detail painted a picture of a hard-working single mother trying to make ends meet, not a jewel thief. "Emma!" A woman's voice echoed across the lobby filled with panic. "Emma, where are you?" A woman in her early 30s rushed toward them, her face pale with worry. She wore the uniform of the building's cleaning service, and her hands were red and raw from harsh chemicals. Despite her obvious exhaustion, she was beautiful in the way that people who've survived real hardship often are. There was strength in her eyes and determination in the set of her jaw. "I'm here, Mama," Emma called out, running to her mother's arms. "I was helping this nice man pick up his important papers." The woman, who introduced herself as Lisa Park, looked mortified. "I'm so sorry, sir. I told Emma to wait in the break room, but she must have wandered off. I hope she wasn't bothering you." "Not at all," Marcus said, studying Lisa's face carefully. "She was incredibly helpful. In fact, she saved me from a potential disaster." As Lisa hugged her daughter, Marcus noticed something that made his heart skip. Lisa had the same delicate bone structure as Emma, the same intelligent eyes, but there was something else, something familiar about her features. When she turned her head to scold Emma gently, he caught sight of a small scar above her left eyebrow, shaped like a crescent moon. Marcus's world tilted on its axis. He knew that scar. He'd seen it every day for 3 years when they were teenagers. Lisa wasn't just any single mother struggling to make ends meet. She was Lisa Chen, his cousin, the daughter of his uncle who had died in a car accident 16 years ago. The last time he'd seen her, she'd been 17 years old at her father's funeral, right before she'd disappeared from the family's life completely. "Lisa," he said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. "Lisa Chen?" The woman froze, her face going white as she slowly turned to face him. Recognition dawned in her eyes, followed quickly by fear, shame, and something that might have been relief. "Marcus," she breathed. "Oh my God, Marcus." Emma looked between them, confused by the sudden tension in the air. "Mama, do you know this man?" Lisa's eyes filled with tears. "Yes, sweetheart, this is your cousin Marcus." The next hour was a blur of emotions as they sat in Marcus's private office, Emma playing quietly in the corner, while the adults tried to piece together 15 years of separation. The story that emerged was heartbreaking and complicated. After her father's death, Lisa had been overwhelmed by grief and the sudden responsibility of being completely alone in the world. Marcus's family had offered to help, but she'd been too proud and too hurt by what she saw as their earlier neglect of her father to accept their support. She'd taken the bracelet, the only thing of value she owned, and left town, determined to make it on her own. "I was 17 and stupid," Lisa said, tears streaming down her face. "I thought I could handle anything. I had some money from selling Dad's things, and I thought it would last until I got on my feet. But I had no idea how expensive everything was, how hard it would be to find work without a high school diploma." She'd struggled for years, working multiple minimum wage jobs, moving from city to city whenever rent got too expensive or opportunities dried up. She'd gotten pregnant with Emma when she was 24, and the father had disappeared the moment he learned about the baby. Since then, it had been just the two of them against the world. "I wanted to come back so many times," Lisa continued, "especially after Emma was born. I wanted her to know her family, to have the stability I never gave her. But I was so ashamed. I'd stolen from you, disappeared without a word. How could I explain that? How could I face your grandmother knowing I'd taken her most precious possession?" Marcus felt his own eyes welling up. "Lisa, Grandma died 5 years ago. Her last words were about you. She was worried about you. Wondered if you were safe. She never blamed you for taking the bracelet. She said she hoped it was protecting you wherever you were." The dam broke then, and Lisa sobbed like she hadn't allowed herself to do in years. Marcus found himself crying too, mourning the lost years, the missed opportunities, the family gatherings where Emma should have been surrounded by cousins and aunts, and uncles who would have spoiled her rotten. Emma, sensing the emotional weight of the moment even if she didn't understand it fully, came over and hugged both adults. "It's okay," she said in her wise little voice. "Mom always says that sometimes grown-ups cry when they're happy too." And she was right. Beneath the sadness and regret, there was overwhelming joy. Marcus had found his family he'd given up hope of ever seeing again. Emma had a father figure and a whole extended family she'd never known existed. Lisa had come home. The challenges they faced in the following months were significant but not insurmountable. Lisa had to swallow her pride and accept help, which went against every survival instinct she'd developed over the past 15 years. Marcus had to learn how to be an uncle, how to balance his high-powered career with family obligations he'd never experienced before. Emma had to adjust to a completely new life, better schools, different neighborhood, extended family members who all wanted to meet her and spoil her. There were awkward family dinners where Lisa felt out of place, among people who'd attended private schools and never worried about rent money. There were nights when Emma cried because she missed their tiny old apartment and the simplicity of their previous life. There were moments when Marcus wondered if he was moving too fast, changing too much at once, but they worked through each challenge together, as families do. Marcus helped Lisa get her GED and then supported her through college, where she discovered a talent for business that had been suppressed by years of just trying to survive. Lisa helped Marcus remember what it felt like to have people who loved him for who he was, not what he could do for them. Emma brought joy and wonder back into both their lives, reminding them to notice sunsets and laugh at silly jokes and find magic in ordinary moments. The bracelet, when they had it appraised, turned out to be worth far more than the insurance estimate, nearly $200,000 due to its historical significance and the rarity of the jade. But its true value couldn't be measured in dollars. It had protected Lisa and Emma through their darkest times, and it had ultimately brought them home. 6 months after that day in the lobby, Marcus stood at the altar of the same church where his grandmother's funeral had been held, watching Lisa walk down the aisle. Not as a bride, that would come later, when she'd had time to heal and rebuild her confidence, but as his partner in launching a new foundation. The Chen Family Foundation would provide support for single mothers trying to get back on their feet, offering everything from job training to childcare to emergency financial assistance. Emma, wearing a new dress but still sporting the jade bracelet that had brought them all together, served as the ribbon-cutting ceremony's honorary chair. In her speech, which Marcus had helped her write, but which she delivered with surprising poise, she said, "My mama taught me that we should always help people when they're in trouble. Sometimes when you help someone pick up their papers, you pick up a whole family instead." The audience laughed and cried, and Marcus felt his grandmother's presence as surely as if she were standing beside him. She would have been so proud of Lisa, so delighted by Emma, so happy to see her family reunited and using their good fortune to help others. That evening, as they celebrated at a family dinner that included aunts and uncles and cousins Emma was still getting to know, Marcus pulled Lisa aside. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "Taking the bracelet, leaving all those years of struggling?" Lisa looked across the room where Emma was showing her teenage cousins how to fold napkins into flowers, a skill she'd learned during their lean years when they'd had to make their own entertainment. "I regret the pain I caused everyone," she said. "I regret the years we lost. But I don't regret the journey that led us here. Emma and I learned things during those hard years that we never would have learned otherwise. We learned that we're stronger than we thought, that love doesn't require money or status, that family isn't just about blood. It's about showing up for each other, especially when times are tough." She paused, watching as Emma made all the cousins laugh with her impression of a very serious business person. "Besides," Lisa added with a smile, "if I hadn't taken that path, Emma never would have been in your lobby that day. She never would have helped you pick up those papers. And none of this." She gestured around the room filled with family and laughter and love would have happened. Marcus nodded, understanding completely. Sometimes the most beautiful destinations can only be reached by taking the longest, most difficult roads. Sometimes losing everything is the only way to discover what truly matters. And sometimes, a little girl helping a stranger pick up papers can change multiple lives forever. 3 years later, Emma would start middle school at one of the city's best private academies, but she would never forget the lessons she learned during their years of struggle. Lisa would graduate with honors from business school and become Marcus's partner in both the foundation and, eventually in life, though that's a story for another day. Marcus would step back from the day-to-day operations of his company to focus on philanthropy, discovering that helping one person at a time brought him more satisfaction than any multi-million-dollar deal ever had. And the bracelet would continue to rest on Emma's wrist, a reminder that protection comes in many forms, sometimes as ancient jade and gold, sometimes as a mother's fierce love, sometimes as an unexpected kindness from a stranger, and always as the unbreakable bonds of family, whether born into or chosen. The last challenge they would face together was learning to trust their happiness, to believe that good things could last, that families could heal, and that love, real, unconditional, show up no matter what. Love was not a luxury reserved for the wealthy, but a birthright, available to anyone willing to open their hearts to it. On Emma's 10th birthday, as she blew out the candles on a cake surrounded by more family than she'd ever dreamed possible, she made a wish, not for toys or clothes or anything money could buy, but for the courage to always help people when they're in trouble, because you never know when picking up someone's papers might lead to picking up an entire beautiful life. What did you think of this heartwarming story? Have you ever experienced an unexpected moment that changed your life forever? Share your thoughts and your own stories in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. If this story touched your heart, please show some love by hitting that like button, sharing it with someone who needs to hear this message, and subscribing to Trillionaire in Love for more inspiring content. Your support means everything and helps me continue sharing stories that remind us all of the power of kindness and family. Don't forget to ring that notification bell so you never miss our latest uploads.